Wisconsin State Capitol programming is made possible with support from Quick Trip, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and Wisconsin Counties Association. Wisconsin Eye is an independent, nonprofit public affairs broadcast network. Watch Wisconsin Eye on Spectrum Channels 995 and 363 and at wisi.org.
Your seat, I would appreciate that. And to start out today, we're going to have Representative Tranel lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I ask that members and visitors please silence your cell phones. Representative Shanklin will be joining us remotely today, and Representative Emerson, Moses, and Whitkey have excused absences. With that, I would ask the clerk to please take the roll of the committee.
Representatives Murphy.
Here.
Dahlman.
Here.
Tranel.
Here.
Duco.
Here.
Whitkey. Summerfield. Krug. Petrick. Cabral-Guevara. Moses. Hesselbein.
Here.
Shanklin.
Here.
Anderson. Here. Emerson. Stubbs.
Thank you. I'm Representative Dave Murphy, and welcome to the Assembly Committee on Colleges and Universities. This is a public hearing of the committee. We will be hearing two bills today. If you'd like to speak in favor or against a bill, please register with the pages. You can also register your opinion on a bill for or against. Today we have the two bills, and we're starting with AB 873. Ledge Council, could you please give us a brief explanation of the bill?
Assembly Bill 873 requires the Department of Health Services to establish a grant program for awarding grants for research into spinal cord injuries, as well as appoint a spinal cord injury council to assist with the administration of the grant program.
Thank you. Testifying first on this bill is one of the co-authors, Representative Jimmy Anderson. Representative Anderson, good morning.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Morning. So, Chairman Murphy and members of the committee, thank you so much for holding a public hearing on AB 873. I appreciate this opportunity to speak on this bill. Each year, there are over 17,000 new spinal cord injuries across the country, including more than 200 here in Wisconsin alone. Spinal cord injuries place an incredible toll on the injured and their families, whether it's physically, emotionally, and financially. High-level injuries can cost over $1 million the first year alone, and then $100,000 a year after that for these individuals and their families. Despite advances in most medical research, spinal cord and traumatic brain injuries are understudied, and the research that does exist is vastly underfunded. AB 873 would establish a $3 million grant program for research on new and innovative treatments for these injuries. Minnesota has already passed $8 million in state funding for a similar program, and as a direct result, the Mayo Clinic has made incredible progress in developing new treatments, providing hope for people far beyond their state lines. In addition to providing research funding, AB 873 will create a spinal cord injury council to bring researchers together and individuals with spinal cord injuries together to help direct the program. Having people with spinal cord injuries on the council will ensure that real-life experience is a major part of the decision-making process. This bill also provides funding for a symposium where researchers across the state can come together, share their ideas, and build on each other's successes. This legislation has incredible potential to change the lives of thousands of people across the country, as you will hear from many who will testify today. Rarely do we get such an opportunity to have such a positive impact on so many lives, but this can only happen with your support. Thank you for your consideration. We'll welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you, Representative. Do we have any questions from the committee? I would just like to say I'm a co-sponsor of this legislation. And I did get some questions about, Representative Murphy, why at this point did you decide to hear this bill? And, a couple reasons. Number one, I think it's an important piece of legislation. Number two is I see some folks in the room that stopped in to see me to advocate for this. And it shows the power that people can have in talking to the representatives. I remember early on in this process of this bill, the bill came out, it was assigned to my committee, I think the same day or the day after, I got a call from some of the advocates, and they're asking me, Representative Murphy, how do we get a bill like this passed? What should we do? And I said, well, the first thing you got to do is you got to get to this committee chairman. I had not even realized yet at that point that the bill had been, because generally speaking, a spinal cord injury bill, you don't necessarily think is coming to colleges and universities. You think it might be in health committee, obviously. So, but then all of a sudden I get off the phone and start looking through the folders, and it's like, oh, okay, we got this bill, so we better do something about it. So that's why, for anyone who has a question about why it's being heard today, that's why. The other thing about it is it's always helpful for any piece of legislation to get an airing and to be vetted, because next time when it comes around, you're just that much more prepared to do the things or to make the adjustments that need to be made. So with that, anybody else? Representative Hesselbein.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Great to see you again. Thank you for being here, Representative Anderson. It's always great to hear from you. I don't know how I missed this one to put my name as a co-sponsor, but I plan to do that immediately following this hearing. So thank you for being here and for always advocating for the people in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just comment quickly on Chairman Murphy's remarks. I think we all recognize that legislation can be a slow road, and every little step forward that we're able to make, I think, is progress that we can all be proud of. And so thank you for those comments, and thank you, Representative Hesselbein.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Representative Anderson, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, are we very much appreciated? Please call order. Okay, so we got so testifying next, Maxwell Rammer, United to Fight. Is Maxwell here? All right. We can circle back. Doug Rammer. Doug's not here either? Okay. They're together. Yep. Okay. John Martinson. Yeah, I knew he's here. How you doing, John?
Great. Welcome, members of the Assembly Committee on Colleges and Universities, to my world. My name is John Martinson. I'd like to testify today in front of you. Well, I'd like to start out with luck. I'd like to tell you about how my spinal cord injury came about. Growing up on a farm in Wisconsin, my family grew tobacco, which involved a lot of manual labor and risk, especially hanging tobacco in the drying sheds. Being the oldest boy, my job was being up in the air, straddling two poles beneath my feet while hanging lats of tobacco. Another risky job that I did was being an iron worker all over the great state of Wisconsin. I worked on the Green Bay practice facility, which is 65 feet up in the air to the peak. And the bonus was I was able to watch the Packers play next to the field from a bird's eye view. Being an avid deer hunter, I was always climbing trees for a better view and vantage point while hunting and never got hurt. Unlike 5 of my new friends who fell while being up in a tree stand. And don't get me started on my Harley Davidson riding experiences. My luck ran out on June 17th, 2002. While working in my shop at home, I was spray painting the ceiling when I had to close the overhead door and spray the peak of the shop. It was really hot that day. I was in a hurry. I had a mask on, but it wasn't a respirator. I was really susceptible to the solvent that was in that paint and passed out and fell 12 feet, injuring my spinal cord at the thoracic gate level, right below my nipples. Now a wheelchair is my expensive shoes, more expensive than Air Jordan shoes, which can cost around $200 to $400. Mine runs around $3,000, unlike my colleague Mike Mohr's shoes, which cost $25,000. I call Mike's wheelchair Air Mohr shoes. I wouldn't wish a spinal cord injury or disease on my worst enemy. I see and experience all the mental and physical pain that it inflicts on everyday people and their families. Please support AB 873 before more people's luck runs out. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, John. I don't have any questions myself. You and I talked in my office about your situation, so I'll check and see if is there anybody on committee that has any questions for John? Representative Cabral-Caveira.
Thank you very much. I know we've spoken also.
Yeah.
Are there other programs like this in other states that have been beneficial? From my understanding, I believe when we spoke that there had been mentioned that there are other states that have similar programs that you're duplicating off of?
Correct. Minnesota is the largest one with almost $8 million of funding. They actually started out, I believe, like $1 or $2 million, and then they came back and they approved $6 million. So they saw the benefit of this bill in their state, and then so that's the reason why I think if we get approved for $3 million, we'll have to come back with at least $9 million to beat Minnesota. So, but I mean, there's been functional recovery from this research that's been done in Minnesota. They did epidural spinal cord injury stimulation, and some people have gotten some functional recovery back from that. So there's hope that there is, there's going to be some functional recovery from all this research. And 20 years ago, when I was injured, they told me in 5 years I'd be walking with this stem cell, research, stem cells, introduction. So it's such a complicated injury that I believe it's going to take a cocktail of research and cures to get people back into functional recovery. So you've got to break down the scar tissue. You've got to introduce some type of neuron cell, and then you also have to do really a lot of repetition physical therapy, and then maybe some type of epidural stimulation to send the signals through. I'm here too because a lot of my friends have health issues because it comes with the territory with spinal cord injury, and it's also a financial burden too on a lot of people. So that's why this bill is so important. Thank you. Okay. Appreciate your listening.
Thank you. All righty, next up, do we have, okay. We have Max Rammer back. And Doug. Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning. Do I just start? Right
Start
here?
anytime you want.
Start anytime. All right. Chairperson Murphy and the members of the Committee on Colleges and Universities, I come before you in support of AB 873. In 2017, I had the world to look forward to. I had just graduated high school and got accepted to my dream school, which is UW-Madison. I was excited, nervous, and ready for what the future had in store for me. It was the end of summer before going off to college, and I was having the time of my life with friends. And that's when everything changed. A week before I left for Madison, I was meeting up with my friends for one last get-together before we headed off to school, and I was in a diving accident that ruined my life forever. I became a C6 quadriplegic, which means that I'm paralyzed from my chest down. I can't use any of my fingers or half my arms. When you look at me, you might see a wheelchair and someone who will never walk again, but I'm here to tell you that walking is the least of my worries. While I don't speak for everybody with an injury, I personally don't care that I'll never walk again. As someone who lives with the day-to-day life of being paralyzed, I am more concerned with the many other aspects of this injury that affect my life in much more severe ways than being able to stand or walk again. For example, I experience bed sores and urinary infections that interrupt and threaten my life or leave me bedridden for extended periods of time. Just last semester, I was hospitalized twice for a week each time due to urinary tract infections that threatened my life. I had to be put on IV antibiotics as a last resort because the bacteria was resistant to all the other antibiotics the doctors gave me. My doctor that was treating me told me that I was, pardon my language, lucky as the F word to be alive after the second one. It is incredibly hard to go to college and live a normal life in this society when I have to constantly worry about life or death scenarios. While this injury makes my daily life hard, the hardest fact that I've had to face is a strong possibility that my parents will have to bury their son instead of me burying them. My level of injury and the associated unseen medical issues have cut my life expectancy, and I don't expect to live past the age of 60 with the current treatments. Like I stated previously, this injury is so much more than not walking. It is a fight every single day between the mental, physical, and societal pressures just to stay sane. Through my work with UFP, I was excited to pursue a major in political science at UW-Madison. I thought that I could use my experiences, get into politics, and help change things for the better for people like me. When I arrived to campus, I was heartbroken to discover that the political science building is located halfway up Bascom and doesn't have any elevators or adapted bathrooms, so I could not attend. I had to completely change career paths, not because I didn't have the grades or the heart for it, but simply because the university didn't want to accommodate the building, and it would be difficult to accommodate in my pursuit of this degree. Since my injury, I have found peace in music and dreamed of joining the student radio club and was unable to because the communications building was inaccessible. The lack of accommodations and understanding from professors is also a common experience. Last semester, I dropped out of a class because while I was in the hospital, my professor was giving me a hard time about rescheduling quizzes and exams while I was in that hospital for those UTIs. This was too much for me to handle at the moment, and with the Disability Center, I made several attempts to find a path forward, which ultimately ended up with me dropping the class. Unfortunately, this is commonplace. This is a common experience for people like me, and it's just the tip of the iceberg for this daily societal challenges that we face. To continue, there are other aspects of my life that physically impact my life significantly on a daily basis. I mentioned previously that I cannot use my fingers or triceps. This means that I cannot cook or do daily acts of living, which includes getting dressed, showering, cooking, cleaning, etc. I can't even go to the bathroom fully by myself. Additionally, the tasks that I can do are a lot more time consuming. It impacts literally everything, and if I were just able to pinch my fingers again, I would be able to do a majority of the tasks that I just listed. This includes turning a key to get my mail, starting a car, opening a door, holding a pencil, or turning the knob on my music synthesizer. These are all things that I cannot currently do, that with just that small amount of pinching my finger of functional recovery, I would be able to then do in my daily life. This also means that I would be able to improve my independence and make myself more attractive to the business community. And finally, it would reduce the daily hours of caregiving that I require, which are services paid for by the state, in order to complete these tasks. My injury impacts every single waking moment of my life, from societal encounters all the way down to simple physical things like how much air I can breathe into my lungs. Yet, unfortunately, a majority of the research done right now is solely based on getting people walking again. While this would be nice, like I said, it is not the very top priority, and there are still many other functional things that would greatly improve the lives for people like me. I just want tangible improvements that will help me live my life again, and that's why I support this bill. Thank you for your time and for your continued support to enact this legislation. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Maxwell. Very sorry for your circumstance, and now you talked about being able to do some things with your hands. Is there some hope of that happening? Is there physical therapy or something that might help you? Or
so right now there's being research done into like nerve regrowth. Mm-hmm. So that was something that I could have. There was like when I initially had my injury, I pretty much had like a 6-month window to decide, because nerves die, and so I had a 6-month window to decide if I wanted to try this kind of experimental surgery that could regrow the nerves in some of my hands to regain the pinching. Sure. Unfortunately, it's not that. It was not a guarantee, and I was just, at that time in my life, I just wanted to get out of the hospital as much as I could.
Sure.
I didn't want to live in the hospital, so I did not pursue this at the time. Sure. But this is the type of research that this bill would be looking into, especially with, there's a lot of hope with the E-stim. The E-stim is a lot more than just electrical stimulation, E-stim, electrical stimulation. It's a lot more than just getting people to stand again. They've seen improvements with bowel, bladder, sexual function, getting just small motor movements back, things like that.
And I think, the average member of the public, and I'm going to include myself in that category, the idea that somebody has movement down their arm but not in their hands, that's something that's hard for I think lay people to understand, why you would have the nerve sensation to move your arm but not to move your hands.
Yeah, most people when they see me, they think that I can move my hands. I don't know, it looks like I can, but like picking up this glass right here, that's why I use a straw. I have a Red Bull right here. I can't pick it up.
Can't do it. Sure.
Now,
your injury, how long ago was that?
It was coming up on 5 years in August.
5 years in August. Okay. All right. Representative Duco had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, do I understand you're currently enrolled at U2FP?
Correct.
Okay, here we go. Technical difficulties. So you're currently in Madison. Unfortunately, we can't do a lot to change some of the physical things in our buildings because we do have a budget crunch and we're working on doing some of that. But I'm very disappointed to hear that your professors are not being more accommodating. And there are 2 people sitting in the back of this room. Well, you two. That is there some way that we can help him get better access and a little bit more? Okay. So we've got some people that are going to make sure you're taken care of a little bit better than you have been. And Crystal's got you. So I'm really sorry that you've not been taken better care of than that. So we will rectify that situation.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Any other questions?
Representative Hesselbein. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. And I was going to echo what Representative Duco said, that I am so sorry that the UW-Madison has not been more accommodating to you. And also to let you know there is a form and there's something that you can fill out so that the university is aware of what happened to you so it doesn't happen to another student. And if you need any help with that, I'm happy to help you with that because it's really important to me that they treat students well. And unfortunately, that wasn't your case, and I'm sorry about that. And also, I would encourage you to keep looking at political science as a degree because I don't have one. I wish I did in some cases. But certainly, you have a wonderful representative here, and we're cheering for you, but there is a space for you, and we need your voice. So thank you so much for being here today and elevating yours and educating us. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Any other questions from committee? All right. Doug, did you want to say a few words also?
Yes.
Sure.
I'll try to. I'll try to.
Take your time and breathe deep.
It's hard following him. All right. I got that. Chairman Murphy and the members of the Committee of Colleges and Universities, I come before you in support of AB 873. The previous chair testimony was presented by my son, but I have been also working with a colleague with a C5 injury for more than 20 years. But unfortunately, I did not know true impacts of the injury on the day-to-day lives of this community. For 20 years, I was working with this person, and I found myself asking, why can't he have a meeting with me today? Why can't he be here at 8:30 on time like everybody else? Where is he today? Does he have another UTI? Answers to these questions were given to me in August 2017. Being a quadriplegic is more than just the loss of their legs and hands. It's the unseen complications and loss of time that most worries me and Max for his future. Max has accepted the fact that he will never walk, but what truly agonizes him is the pressure sores, urinary tract infections, and the loss of time in his day. As I alluded to with my colleague, and I've observed with my son, it is the amount of time that is lost each day for personal care for someone with an SEI. This time loss is a tremendous personal, emotional, social, and has tremendous personal, emotional, social, and professional consequences for those of the community as well as those who know and care for them. Why didn't my colleague arrive at 9 a.m. each day? I will tell you, it is the time needed to start his day. Each morning, that does not involve going to a bathroom or showering. It takes Max about an hour to get from waking to his chair. While time-consuming, we are fortunate Max has the ability to assist us. For most quads, this will involve a lift and a sling, which increases risk and is a longer process. On bathroom and showering days, at least an additional 3 hours are required. And this varies for each person who's a quadriplegic. As a result, my son does not schedule any classes before 11 a.m. to ensure he completes these tasks before he moves on to his educational day. Moving forward, my son is scheduled to graduate in the spring of 2023, and I'm very proud of him. For example, as he alluded to, he was in the hospital for 2 5-day stays last year and spent several weeks at our home for IV treatment for a urinary tract infection. Urinary tract infections are significant and demoralizing. For example, in 2019, when we first visited this capital for this effort, he was experiencing a UTI. He needed to urinate frequently, and it's unpredictable. I convinced him to attend because I assured him a government building would have accessible bathrooms. While this building does, they are not easy, well marked, or, as we just learned a few minutes ago, they don't work. We were down on the first floor, and you don't have a functioning bathroom. So by the end of our visit, Max was demoralized, sitting in a cushion full of pee with a ride back home before we could take care of him. We believe this added to the severity of his UTI condition and led to some other complications. Currently, he is experiencing stomach pains related to bowel issues that are affecting his ability to attend and focus on class. To alleviate his pain, he bends over in his chair or reaches out for a caregiver or I to do a 3-hour bowel program. These bowel and bladder issues are significant, and the research that is supported in this bill would fund ways that would alleviate these effects and would greatly improve Max's life and his employment prospects. Looking beyond the spring of 2023, it is also very stressful and depressing for him. Who will employ him while accommodating his disability and associated personal care needs? While being at a school that has helped in his accommodations, it has been difficult. He alluded to his problem with the political science, but he was further discouraged to pursue his main interest in business and information management systems during a discussion in a human resources class. It was evidently made clear to him that he would need the full use of his hands to pursue this interest. No company would hire him. This leads me to the question, will anybody ever hire my son? There is research in surgical options that can give him the ability to use his fingers, as he alluded to, and restore his tricep strength. I would like you to note 80% of the disabled community is unemployed, and the state of Wisconsin spends approximately $500 million for the care of the SEI community on each biennium. The research funded by this bill would greatly improve the employment opportunities of this community and also reduce the state costs. Finally, I am a researcher for the U.S. government, so I've written and evaluated research proposals for over 30 years. In that experience, during that time, I've experienced that research conducted and developed with the community that is involved or that will be directly impacted is the best type of research. With the bill in front of you, it requires active participation of the community by creating a panel that consists of a person who has a lived SEI experience, a member of a family member of a person with SEI, noted researchers in the area, a Veterans Affairs representative, and others who have knowledge of the day-to-day needs of the SEI community, so that the most focused research and the best money, and your money is spent well spent on these activities. Not specifically spelled out in the bill, but we advocate for is a low overhead rate. We advocate an 8% overhead rate. Consider an overhead a tax the university assesses on research funding. The tax results in less funding going to the research, but the money is used for other important university priorities. Some universities, typically on NSF grants, can charge up to 50% overhead on these funds. So we advocate through this bill a low overhead cost. Finally, I strongly support AB 873 because it is a structure to formulate research to address the unseen daily concerns of the SEI community. As a result of this research, I believe it will improve Max's ability to be employed and reduce the overall cost the state of Wisconsin pays for this community. Thank you for support and listening, and bear with me today.
Good job. Way to get through it. Your being here today sort of puts an exclamation point on just how it's not just difficult for the person, but it's hard on the family. The whole family deals with the situation, and it's tough. So, do I have some questions from committee? Representative Cabral Guevara.
Thank you very much for sharing your story today. So I've had the privilege to be a home care CNA.
I know.
Long ago. And then I had the privilege of being a home care registered nurse, who I've had many clients with similar conditions, and their stories have been very compelling and challenging, right? Makes you refocus and maybe not take things for granted that everybody has been blessed with, and everybody has different abilities, right? But I would say to you as a father, your son's very lucky, because as I worked with many families, and I'm sure there's families here that might even talk about this, a lot of times the strain is too much. Mm-hmm. the caregiver burden will be separated from families and be placed upon hired help and so forth. And so for you to stand strong with your son and be here today, I say thank you very much as a nurse as well as somebody that has experienced with patients myself. So thank you, and continue the fight, because it's not just for you and your son, but it's for all the other family members and caregivers and everybody else.
Right.
So your tears have definitely affected me, but have also shown strength in you. So stand firm.
We are fortunate.
And I look forward to seeing where this goes. You know, Representative Murphy did say it's kind of an awkward time in the session to hear this, but, you know, for me, this was something that I really wanted to focus in on next budget. Yes. And so hopefully that this will just continue the discussion. So thank you.
I appreciate it. I realize this as a government worker. Things take time, and we can eventually get there. And I'm in here for the long fight.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Rammer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Samantha Troyer. Samantha, are you? Oh, there you are.
I have the copies here.
The page will take care of those for you.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Murphy and the committee for hearing about AB 873 today. Not one person ever imagines a future where they suffer a physical and emotionally life-changing traumatic event. At the age of 19, on my way to college with my best friend in the passenger seat, a woman ran a red light as my car crossed an intersection as I had the green light. Upon impact, my door was ripped off and I was thrown 50 feet from the vehicle. Nearly dying, I had to be airlifted to Freighter Hospital with little hope from paramedics that I would survive. Fortunately, I did, due to their heroic efforts by not giving up on resuscitating me, and I'm very privileged that they did not give up, because I'm alive today, and I can't express how much appreciation I have for paramedics in general. From there, my existence and how I knew how to get around in this world changed forever. Life became a series of obstacles, pain, sadness, burdened by being physically less capable because I had become a C1 quadriplegic, which is the very first vertebra in your neck. One of the reasons why I was pulseless and not breathing when the paramedics arrived, because all major organs connect to the first few vertebrae. And investing my time and energy into recover a physical function became my life, which started with learning to breathe again, since I had to be intubated for over a month. All these years later, I have achieved more functional recovery than what the doctors initially predicted. However, that all came at a financial cost. 2 of those times due to needing to find research programs and get treatment in other states. Once was just in 2019 in Florida, because they strongly invest in spinal cord injury research as a state. And one of the other issues that come along with finding research, especially being 15 years post-injury, is that it's a chronic case, and not much research is done for chronic injuries. As Max said earlier, that he had a 6-month window, because acute injuries are more likely to have been researched. So as a chronic case, it's hard to find research, and it's why I was wondering why my own state, which has a science community, institutions ripe with the fruits for potential spinal cord injury cures available for picking and invest in research. All that money put towards rehab and research I spent could have actually spent here. This is why I support AB 873. I believe a state and country that invests in reducing the long-term damage and suffering of an injury that anyone at any age may get can give more hope to the future, might even open
more doors for treating many other central nervous system disorders. Not only will cures or advanced treatments help a person with a spinal cord injury recover function in their own life, but also get back to work and contribute more easily to the community. And I had somebody ask me why I am involved in pursuing this kind of legislation, even if I am a chronic injury, and that I might not get to receive benefits that might result in my lifetime for the research. It's because giving back to the future, paying it forward. All the people that have gotten me to where I am today, like my mom, she brought me home and took care of me and has been a caregiver for me all these years, and I was very lucky to have that. And then the community in general, it's just good to pay it forward and be a positive impact on the future.
Great. Well, thank you, Samantha, and it's really great to hear that you have recovered more than they expected, and I hope that you may recover more yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 15 years, and for like 12 of those years, this hand and arm has been in like a fist at my side. I could not move it much, but now I can kind of get it out away from my body.
Oh, wow.
It's because it's every day. It's like a job. I have to invest time and energy into rehab and exercise, and if I don't, I lose it a lot faster. So I have to stay on top of it.
Okay.
And it's important to keep my physical function active and all that. But, yeah.
Well, good for you for doing the hard work that's necessary to improve it as much as you can. Yeah. Questions? Any questions from committee? Maybe the only thing that I would say before you leave, you talked about why Florida does more on this than Wisconsin does on this or whatever. And every university, every healthcare facility isn't the best at everything. And so people specialize in things. Certain clinics are cancer clinics, and they put their resources, into that area. Another clinic is, are renowned for their, heart surgery and work. And the same way with research universities and all kinds of health care facilities. So sometimes concentrating those dollars in a particular area give us more bang for our buck in a way than if everybody tries to do the same thing. And I know it would be nice if Wisconsin happened to be the best place for spinal cord injuries for you, but that's just the way it is sometimes.
Yeah, and if more states keep investing, then they can collaborate and bring the research even further along.
Sure. Any other questions from committee? Seeing none, Samantha, thank you so much for coming. Murray Blackmore is up next. Hi, Murray. Oh, you're not Murray. Oh, you are Murray. Okay. I thought you were... For a minute there, I thought you were walking away.
All right, Chairman Murphy, members of the committee, thank you so much for having this hearing. I'm here to speak in support, obviously. I'm a professor at Marquette University. I run a lab devoted to spinal cord injury. Just by way of establishing credentials, over the past 10 years, we've acquired about $8 million in funding. I serve as a standing member on a federal review panel. I'm invited to speak around the country and internationally. So I'm here to give kind of the scientist's perspective on this. But before that, you should also know I'm also here as a family member. When I was 13, there was a car accident. We spun out, crossed the median, an oncoming truck hit. The roof collapsed in on my mom. compressed her head, compressed her neck, and that was it. She never moved or felt anything below her upper shoulders again. I was there for that. I watched her live for 27 years with the injury. In 2013, I watched her die from it. Her lungs slowly gave out. This is common as people age with the injury. They slowly filled with liquid over the course of a few months. I'll just say it's not a good way to die. All right. And I tell you that to say this. I'm not in this business, and I'm not here today to support the scientific enterprise. I'm not here to support scientists. I'm here because there's a problem that needs to be solved, and I need to do whatever I can to solve it. That's what this is about. So, as a scientist on a mission, all right, there are things about this bill that are so strong that I had to come here and tell you about them from the inside perspective. Number one, it's competitive. That is so important. Easy money doesn't make good science. Scientists are like anyone else. They're at their best when they're fighting for their ideas, when they're competing. And this bill does that, so that's good. Number two, I think what matters more is who's judging the competition, and you've heard this already. But again, I'm on federal review panels. I reviewed hundreds of grants over the years. It's a room full of scientists. I'll tell you what happens. It's an echo chamber of really smart people getting very interested in very small details. And what's missing is the urgency, and what's missing is that practical voice asking the really tough questions. How is this going to work in the real world, outside of the lab? How is this going to work? So you put the clinician in the room, you put the person with the lived experience in the room, and you aim the money where it should go, which is towards solving the problem. So it's a really strong part of this bill. Third, I think there's a question that you have to ask, and it's a simple one. If the federal government is already funding research, why would the state fund it, right? And the answer is because seed funding like this is how you get the federal dollars. Right? You probably know this. Federal review panels are extremely cautious. They will only fund work that they are quite sure is going to work. They need to see preliminary data. Right? So as a researcher, it means that you have to have already done some of the work before you can ask the federal government to support the whole project. I get it. Like they're protecting taxpayer dollars, great, but the problem is innovation, right? So where does the money come from for the researcher to take that first step, to take that risk, to do the innovative thing? So there's an opportunity here, right? There's an opportunity to provide seed funding to allow Wisconsin researchers to take a risk, to take an innovative step and get those federal dollars. And to come back to my earlier point, the real opportunity is because those first experiments set the course for the larger project, have the clinician in the room, have the person with the lived experience doling out the seed money, you're going to aim the larger project in the right direction. Final point, Wisconsin is so ready for this. I don't think anyone designed it, but we lucked into it. Wisconsin, in fact, does have impressive strength in nerve regeneration and spinal cord injury. I did something. I sat down with a sheet of paper, and I listed out the people that I know personally, or I know their work personally, that I think could sit down today and write a competitive grant for this. The number's 16, spread across the state, right? I don't mean Google. I don't mean I kind of stretching the definitions. I mean people that I know that I think could put it in. I could rattle them off if you want. So I really think the state is in a very strong position to make a really strong move here. With that, I'll conclude, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So, Mr. Blackmore, you talked about early on about $8 million in funding that you had. Where is that funding coming from? Is that federal?
Mostly federal.
Okay.
Yeah. And really quick, I think it's worth telling the story on that. There's a local foundation in Milwaukee, the Brian Reich Foundation, and they were my source of seed funding. A little bit, about $50,000 a year for several years. It allowed me to try something new and different than hadn't been done before. It turned out that it worked. I was able to take that to the federal government, and my current round of funding, which is about $4 million, came straight from that seed funding from the Brian Reich Foundation. So that's how you play the game, but that's what this bill is about.
All right. Representative Duco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you answered my question. I was going to ask if you were language.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, John, Fred and the Reese family. And
Absolutely.
they have done amazing things.
They're amazing.
Yeah, and Brian's amazing.
Right. But they can only do so much. We need to scale it up.
Cool. Representative Dahlman.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Just have a quick question. Do you feel, so if this were to pass, this bill were to pass, obviously it'd be money that would come in. Do you feel like Marquette would, or your program would get that grant, or is there a process that would take place as to, would it be split up amongst different areas of this, or different schools, or would it primarily go towards just one of the schools?
Oh, this would be a highly competitive process. So yes, I would throw my hat in the ring, as many people would. It would then be judged by a panel, and sort of the best grant, as judged not just by the scientists, but by the people in the chair. The one most likely to lead to something good would get the money in that particular year. Another way to say that is, honestly, if I competed and I lost, I didn't get the money, I wouldn't be that sad, because it would mean that panel looked at an array of projects, and there was one that was even better than mine that they thought was going to really get traction, lead to commercialization, lead to real treatment. So that's a fight I'm happy to lose, if that makes sense.
Okay, I have one follow-up too, because I know you, Marquette, submitted testimony, or submitted written testimony here too, saying that they would like to see an amendment on here to have them added on, or a member of the Marquette University to be added on to this council specifically. I'm just wondering why we should be choosing one over the other, or making different additions like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit above my pay grade, but it seems to me, I think what Marquette is saying, instead of saying that there will be representatives of these two institutions but not any others, would be to open it up and to say there should be representatives from the following institutions.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Representative Petrick.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony today. Can you speak a little bit? I'm always fascinated when Wisconsin can position themselves to perhaps leverage federal funding. Are you familiar at all with the $8 million that Minnesota, for example, has invested, and how much they've been able to leverage, and maybe Florida too? And I'm sure we could find these answers, but I thought maybe you might be familiar, much more so than anyone in the room. So if you would, please. Thank you.
I wish I had those numbers at my fingertips. I don't. I'm hopeful that people from the Unite to Fight Paralysis Foundation, which is Minnesota-based, can speak to it hopefully later today. I know it's a net gain, but I don't want to misspeak and put a number on it. But certainly more than $8 million of federal funding have flowed into Minnesota as a result. How much more, I don't know. Yeah.
Representative Hesselbein.
Thank you, Chairperson Murphy, and thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. My question was kind of on the federal funding side. Have you seen in recent years, has that federal funding stayed even, been higher or lower, or is it every single time that you apply, it's just kind of willy-nilly, you're never sure kind of what you're going to get because it's shared through different platforms?
It gets complicated, but it comes down to the concept of pay line. So they rank grants by percentile, and you need to be below a certain number to be considered for funding. Those numbers are tough. Depending on what institute, they're between the 8 and 12%. So to put another way, to get a federal grant, you need to be better than about 88% of all the other scientists in that round.
So have you seen in recent years that your level of federal funding has gone up or down?
I'm going to call it, pay lines have been more or less flat in the last 5 years or so. Yep.
Any other questions? Representative Petrick again.
Sorry, a little follow-up, but Doctor, I saw in Marquette's printed testimony that there's interest in an amendment. Do you know if anyone has spoken to the author or authors about adding an amendment which would include a member of Marquette?
No, I just don't know how that communication has gone. I know it's been very recent. There's been a flurry of emails in the last couple of days.
Okay. But no one else will be here from Marquette. Is that your understanding?
No.
Okay, well, we'll follow up, and I'll check with the authors too. Thank you.
Great.
So 2 members of the council, one would be University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, and then the other one would be the Medical College of Wisconsin. Those are our only two medical schools. My question is, in Marquette's request to open it up also to them, now you're going in just a bit of a different direction, and whether we would get requests from, you could get requests from lots of other people to also be on that. So I don't know. That would be my, my question on that, and whether that fits with what we're doing here or not. So, any other questions? Seeing none?
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Rob Kozarek. Is that close enough? Or is it Kozarek?
Kozarek.
Yeah.
It's a name.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. It sounds like I just missed out on the tornado siren hour, so that's good.
Oh my gosh.
But thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. Really appreciate it. My name is Rob Kozarek. I am an innovation and commercialization analyst at UW Health through the ISMIS project. And I come before you in support of AB 873. So I'm here really as the proof faction of this. Before the committee, I was actually fortunate enough to partake in one of the research projects that was born from some of this funding at the University of Minnesota called eStand. This is centered around implantation of an epidural stimulator in spinal cord injury patients. And the goal really is to improve function. And as you all may know, function and success vary from person to person. For me, success and function was intertwined in the autonomic functions that you lose when you get a spinal cord injury. And for that, largely, I was successful in the implantation, and the research was very successful in that regard. For others, however, the research has given the ability to regain the ability to be more independent in their care, the ability to mitigate health issues in the future, as well as the possibility to restore more muscle function. In fact, some of these people were able to stand and walk based off the research that was provided to us. All these things were considered impossible just a few years ago. But with the advancement of research and research like it across the United States, the promise of medical innovation and to address spinal cord injury and the issues associated with it has never been stronger. My work with UW and the University Hospital puts me in direct contact with cutting-edge medical technology and that has the ability to change the face of healthcare today. These institutions and many research institutions in Wisconsin have earned the state its reputation as a leader in healthcare innovation and advancement. The bill you see before you today aligns directly with the reputation that has the ability to affect countless lives of those living with disability, as well as those who may not be affected by it yet. Empowering Wisconsin with the tools to drive medical innovation opens the door to the possibility to drive positive economic change in the state. States that have approved similar funding have seen upticks in both businesses that have spun out of the research, as well as jobs that further drive innovation within that community, or drive that innovation to commerciality. Sponsorships from larger medical device manufacturers result from the successes that are derived from the funding. And most importantly, Wisconsin residents would benefit from this in a very meaningful way. No longer would Wisconsinites need to look beyond the state borders to find a way to partake in these life-changing studies. In my particular experience, I was able to have the time and the means to be able to travel monthly to Minnesota, but it is a a large time commitment, and being able to enjoy that here and have people that are from here enjoy the research that is derived here would be a huge benefit. This funding creates an ecosystem that sustains, promotes, and drives an economy that really is currently missing in Wisconsin today. Interest in AB 873 extends well beyond that of patients, as a potential economic benefit from the work the bill would generate is extensive. Improving health in the population would reduce economic burden for patients, increase efficient hospital resource allocation, and reduce government cost expenditure that is often necessary when with treatment within this population. The benefits of approving this bill far outweigh the costs. For every dollar invested in research toward improving the health and well-being of this population, the cost relief downstream effects increases exponentially. I would once again like to reiterate my support for this bill and encourage you to improve this as an investment in the population of underrepresented people, medical advancement, and in the state of Wisconsin. Thank you very much.
So, Rob, can you explain to me a little bit, as a layperson, a little bit the procedure or what you were doing that helped you so much?
Yeah, absolutely. So with this particular project, there's been recent research going on where they are implanting what was typically seen as a way to reduce pain. It's a spinal cord stimulator. That is
what kind of
a spinal cord stimulator.
Spinal cord
stimulator. So it's a little pad. It's got about 8 electrodes on each side, so 16 total. Okay. They insert it into your spinal canal, so it's a common laminectomy, and they attach a battery pack. And so the array is not necessarily is not in the most, every person reacts to it differently. And so the object of this research was to find the best possible way for you to react to it. And so what they found is that this can not only affect the very autonomic responses, such as bowel, bladder, and blood pressure, that sort of thing, but it can also generate a muscle reaction. So people have been able to voluntarily move their legs based off of the implant once this implant is turned on. And like I said in my little talk here, the reaction to it is very different. So for me, I wasn't really expecting to get a muscle response. Once it's turned on, I am able to kick my legs out, but largely not functional. For a lot of other people, though, they have been able to stand, to walk, to do these things that was impossible 10 years ago.
Wow. Cool. Any other questions from the committee? Members? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Next up, we have Michael Mohr. And Michael, you are the last person testifying on this bill unless someone else comes forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Murphy and members of the committee, for your time today. My name is Mike Mohr. I'm really excited to be here and excited about Assembly Bill 873. And I hope you'll join me in my excitement for this proposal as we move forward. Just for the record, I am including with my testimony numerous letters from people living with spinal cord injury in the state of Wisconsin and around the country. There are a lot of people supporting this proposal who can't be here today. We are also including a letter of support from a Minnesota legislator who strongly supports what we are proposing here and has been a champion for us in that state. Like I say, my name is Mike Mohr. I live in Madison, about 3 blocks from here, actually. I grew up in Sheboygan, so I'm definitely a Wisconsin guy. I have a spinal cord injury. I was paralyzed in high school,
I was a swimmer for my high school swim team. Our starting blocks at the time were in the shallow end of the pool, about 3.5 feet deep. And at practice one day, I did a racing start, and hit my head on the bottom. Instantly broke my 5th cervical vertebrae, and have been paralyzed ever since from the shoulders down. I can't feel or move anything from the shoulders down. I have limited arm and hand movement, and really no finger dexterity. My injury is similar to Max's, maybe a little bit higher function, a little bit of a higher injury, slightly less function than him. Like Max, I rely on many hours of personal care, helping me get up in the morning, get into bed at night. I deal with the same issues with bladder and bowel dysfunction, worrying about issues like pressure sores and urinary tract infections, and have had a history of that. My injury was 25 years ago, so I've been at this for quite a while. Let's see here. The frequent health issues, sometimes frequent health issues have in fact landed me in the hospital like Max has described, and these are not unusual for people with high-level spinal cord injuries. It can be a very difficult life. It's still a good life, I'll tell you that much. I've done lots of interesting things. I went to college, I went to law school, practiced law for a while, changed gears, decided to learn about psychology and counseling, and now I'm a counselor for UW students with disabilities. I travel, I have relationships, I go to concerts. It's a good life, right? But it's a hard life, okay? Now, like I said here, I'm excited, okay? And I'm excited about the potential for this bill. I'm excited for a number of reasons. First of all, we're modeling this bill after bills that have been very successful in other states. You've talked a little bit about Minnesota already, and Minnesota has seen great success there. We've also seen success in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and also the state of Washington. I'm excited about it, and the reason why it's because it's working well, and the reason why it's working well is because it's set up really intelligently, okay? We're asking for money, but we're asking for smart money. This is not just a dump of a grant to one of the research institutions in the state. As has been mentioned to you, we're asking for competitive grants, okay? And what's really exciting about the competitive grant process is certainly the people who are at the table deciding who wins those grants. Certainly we need to have researchers who understand the technology sitting at the table, and we need clinicians who understand the health impacts. But it's important that people with spinal cord injuries are at the table as well. Like Dr. Blackmore said, there's a sense of urgency that we bring to the table, right, and understanding what we should be prioritizing in terms of potential functional return. So I'm excited about the notion that we'll have a say in where these grants go. I'm also excited because it's money that will be spent efficiently. Okay, it does call for a 92%. 92% of the money of each grant should be spent on the research, and no more than 8% overhead. State money should be spent efficiently, and certainly that's the case here. Finally, I'm excited about why do I think this is smart money? Researchers who receive these grants will be compelled to come back and present on what they've done. Okay, they complete their research projects, their studies, and they'll come back and present at a symposium that will occur every other year and share what they've learned, share the results of their studies. And they're finding, for example, in Minnesota, that these symposia are remarkably effective, not just in educating the community as to what's going on, but also developing or having the opportunity for people to meet up who otherwise wouldn't be connecting. Researchers are developing and collaborating new ideas together because this is bringing intellectuals together who otherwise wouldn't be at the same table. So I think it's smart money, and it's been effective. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what's going on in Minnesota. Representative Petrick, you asked about what's the return on investment, right? And certainly you found our one sheet, great. The short answer is they're getting about a 10-to-1 return on investment. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? You can't find that return on investment anywhere, and it's coming in the form of additional grants, like Dr. Blackmore said. You can take the results of your study and go get money from the NIH or the Department of Defense or private foundations. But we're also seeing innovation in the private sector. We're seeing startups based around the results of these studies that are showing up, and so you're seeing new business development, and so it's been wildly successful in Minnesota. There's a couple of startups I can think of. One is called STEM Sherpa, and that's a company that is kind of perfecting the stimulation therapies that you heard about from Rob, right, that he had. There's another company there whose name escapes me, but they're developing nerve tissue and specific nerve tissues that can be researched, but also might become therapeutic. The startup I'm most excited about is based on research done in Ohio that was funded by Ohio's bill by a researcher named Dr. Silver, Dr. Jerry Silver, and he's been long been a researcher in the spinal cord injury field, and his technologies are now being advanced by a startup called NerveGen, and they announced a very exciting human clinical trial in January. They announced it in January. It'll take place later this year, and it will help deal with some of those issues related to scar tissue and how that prevents neurological recovery. So there's lots of exciting things happening. There's economic development. There's a research economy that's developing in Minnesota. Minnesota has become a global hotspot on the global map of spinal cord injury research. They're the place to be, and I'd really like to see Wisconsin join the ranks, right? All those things are exciting, but the most exciting thing about what's going on in Minnesota to me is they're doing human clinical trials, right? You're seeing what happened with Rob. They're actually advancing, this research from the lab, from laboratories into human trials. And that's very exciting stuff. One final thing I'd like to talk about is just financial impact, right? Let's talk about money. There's a reason why we're here asking the state for money, and we're not approaching big biotech companies, and we're not approaching Pfizer and other pharmaceuticals. Unfortunately, research into spinal cord injury is not going to drive enormous profits. It's just not. Where there's not an economy of scale there. There are only 2, maybe 300,000 of us in the country. So you're not going to see Pfizer invest millions and millions of dollars in the hopes of recuperating, billions in profits. Not the same way they do when they invest in cholesterol medicine, right? They're not going to financially benefit. But I think the state of Wisconsin really stands to benefit financially by investing in these technologies. You heard from Doug, the cost of care for people with spinal cord injuries to the state runs about $500 million, I believe, every year. It could be every other year, but I believe it's every year. That's a lot of money, $500 million every year. And that's to pay for things like our personal care workers, right? For all those hours that it takes us to get into bed and get up, and the assistance we need throughout the day, and the hospitalizations we experience. I mean, if we can advance the ball on curative therapies that would even give someone like Max or give someone like me incremental functional improvement, the ability to move my hands, we will rely significantly less on those funding sources for personal care. We'll have significantly fewer health issues, and our bill to the state will be significantly lower. I'm here for the health improvements. I'm here for the quality of life improvements. I would hope that would be persuasive enough. You all seem to be sympathetic for that. But if you need more ammo, there's significant potential for the state to save money as a result of developing curative therapies here. I think this is, like I said earlier, I think this is a no-brainer. I'm excited to be here. I think there's interesting research going on in Wisconsin. You heard from Dr. Blackmore. There are exciting projects going on. I don't know all the details of them, but I know they're exciting. I'm excited to see that research accelerated into human clinical trials. This bill is a great way to make that happen. I thank you so much for your time and your consideration today, and I'll do my best to field any questions that you have.
So, Michael, your injury was 25 years ago.
Yes.
has your condition changed much over that time? Is it improving? Is it getting worse?
Not at all. I had what's called a complete injury, so there really was not much expectation for recovery since then. I had a couple of operations on my arms to optimize the muscles that I could still contract to do other functions.
Okay.
A year and 2 years after my accident, but otherwise, no, I've been very much plateaued in terms of function since then.
Okay. Questions? Any other questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
And that completes our testimony on the bill. Registrations in favor, Representative Paul Tittle, Representative Van Wangard, from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Crystal Potts, Craig Worley, David Messling registering in favor, Penny Messling in favor, Daniel Caniota in favor, Kathy Worley in favor, and H.J. Wakow from the Department of Health Services registering in favor, and Representative Robert Whitkey registering in favor. Nice list there. That completes AB 873.